Hey, I'm just going to invite Alan. Why? There we go. Yeah, it's freaking freezing here. So, yes, I'm wearing layers. So, just waiting for Alan to join. And anyway, so today we have a doctor, Dr. Alan Bacon joining us, and we are going to touch on pretty much what makes weight loss, body recomp, and whatever your goals are, something you can actually maintain for life, because people are too quick to give in to their emotions over rationality. And I guess the most important thing is people struggle with keeping themselves. Getting results actually is easier than you realize. You can easily go on like some stupid juice cleanse, some stupid like just restrict everything to the size of your hand portions and lose weight. But who realistically keeps it off if you don't like get it in a sustainable manner? So I guess the most important thing right now is to ask you, what are the bottlenecks that you come across in when you coach your clients and just day-to-day life?
First, can you hear me really well through this? Can you hear me through it?
Yeah, done.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I wanted to double check on that because I'm running a setup with my iPad that I've not run before. As far as issues that clients run into, with maintaining progress that you've had with fitness, the biggest issue that I find that people tend to have is the all or nothing mindset. And I'm sure that you've run into this with your own clientele. People think that if a certain situation isn't the perfect time, or if it doesn't feel just right, then it is okay to kind of go off the rails. And so the biggest thing that you can help people learn is, throughout your journey, you're going to be really motivated at some time. And then at other times, you're not going to be motivated. So staying on task and getting in what you can get in can make the biggest difference. And I think that one of the ways that you can help people do that is to learn to find joy in the process itself. I think a lot of people go into fitness and nutrition and they think, this is something that I'm going to do for the next 6 months. I'll get to where I want to be, and then everything will be great. And you and I both know that that's not the way that it is. This is a lifelong process. It is something that you have to get in for the long term. And I think that finding what you like in the process is what ends up making this sustainable for life. On top of that, I think that people think that when they achieve their goals, that it's going to be really easy to maintain. And I don't know about your experience, but what my experience is with clients, when you get to your goals, maintenance is actually often harder than getting there in the first place. And it kind of goes back to that whole thing. You think that once you're there, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be, sunshine and everything's going to work out. But learning to stay at maintenance is a skill in itself. The fitness journey doesn't end just because you've gone to your wedding or just because you've gone to the beach trip that you wanted to go on. So maintaining is a difficult stance because people get that feeling of, oh, I can loosen up, I can let go. And it doesn't really work that way, because if you start to revert back to those old habits, you're going to be back in that old position that you were in to begin with. So it takes work. It takes work to get there, and then it takes work to stay there. But the longer that you work on that, the longer that you work on those habits, the easier that becomes over time. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but you got to figure out, why are you doing it and what can you enjoy throughout the process? Do you like going to the gym? Do you like the way that you feel? Do you like the results that you get? You don't have to like training, but do you get something out of that that makes that training worthwhile? And I think that finding these different things and thinking about this in this way, okay, I'm going to be in this, I'm committed to this for an extended period of time. How can I make this something that I can keep my eyes on the goal, and what do I get out of this that benefits me? What do I get out of this that I enjoy? You know, and I think that's the biggest thing that people can take away is figuring out why you're doing it and what you enjoy about it.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, because when people think, this is where social media can really be a detriment, because when you look at people on social media, it looks so easy. It looks like they didn't struggle with it. It looks like it's all sunshine and rainbows. But they forget, like you forget and they forget, that everyone starts somewhere, and it's going to be hard to start with, because at the moment, I've maintained my body for years to come, and I find it extremely, well, I don't want to say easy, but I find it extremely easy now compared to how I found it back then. And I freaking love what I do. Like, I actually hate some things, but I love the fact that I hate them, because I've developed a keyword mindset where if you don't challenge yourself, you don't grow. If you don't challenge yourself in something that is such a small part of your life, how are you going to be able to challenge yourself in other areas of your life that mean so much more to you, like your career, your family, your relationships? But everyone looks at fitness and health as just fitness and health. But being able to actually push through the hard points in fitness and health extends to all other areas of your life. And as you said, you need to like the results that you get out of it. But if you only focus on the results in terms of, I'm losing this much weight, yes, and then obsessing, the chat this morning, and then obsessing over, I wonder what my body fat percentage is. I'm going to get myself a bathroom scale that tells me what my body fat percentage is. Or you like just crazily go to the gym's InBody halfway through the day, and it gives you a high body fat percentage because, I don't know, you probably drank like a liter of water, and that's not really considered lean mass or whatever it is. So you need to realize that the results that you get in the gym aren't just numbers. They aren't just figures. There's so much more to it. Like, we all start somewhere. When I first started out, I was pretty much bedbound a lot of the time because I had no energy, no confidence. I was shopping in the kids section because I didn't fit any proper clothes. There are people that come to us that obviously are really overweight, and they don't even want to go and try on clothes in the change rooms because they feel negative about their body. They obsess over their body. I heard something the other day. You can probably have a lot of examples of this and go on about how obsessive these thoughts can be. But if you actually drew a pie chart about how much you think about certain things in your life and how much of a day it takes up within the day, like obsessive over food, like how much do you think about food in a day? How much do you think about training? Like, what percentage of what takes up the whole day? Then look at it and actually ask yourself, wow, is this really where I want to be spending a lot of my mental energy? Or do I want to be spending it with the kids, with the family, actually doing life? So you need to make things easier for yourself. And back to what I was saying about, you need to enjoy the process. You need to do hard things as well. And you're not always going to enjoy the process. Allan, do you look forward to every single gym session that you do? Does Beth look forward to every single gym session that she does? Does she love everything that she's programmed?
You know, there's most of the time where I'm at in my career, most of the time I do enjoy going to the gym, but there's going to be times, and this, everybody's going to run into this, that you're like, shit, I don't want to get up. You know, it's cold out, it's raining. You know, I just don't feel like it. But there's not a time that anybody ends up going to the gym and regrets it. I challenge people to tell me that there was a time that they went, they got in, you know, a decent 25-minute workout at least, and they said, man, I'm really mad that I went. Nobody's like that. You know, you might pull into the parking lot every once in a while and be like, man, I got too much work, and then roll out. But for the majority of people, once you get in there, once you do something, you feel much better about yourself. And that goes back to the all or nothing mindset. If you've got 25 minutes, if you've got 30 minutes, put that time in. You know, it's going to add up over time. And more importantly than that 25 minutes that you put in, what you're really getting out of that is you're solidifying those habits of getting up, going to the gym, and making it happen. So whether or not you get in the biggest killer workout with the greatest pump of all time, or you're throwing up 405 on bench, it doesn't matter. You got up, you went in, and you're instilling those habits that are going to keep you going in for the rest of your life. So look at it that way. If I just get up and I just go, I'm getting more out of this than just the simple physical aspect that I was expecting out of a good training session. And I think that that kind of evades people. I think that they don't think about that as something that can be extremely beneficial.
It all comes down to that perception of the way you view that workout and the way that you view going into it. You can't just go in with a perfectionist mindset. Like, you will feel like you fail if you set your expectations up here, but you're really only at this level at this point in time. And like, how detrimental, honestly, is social media to so many people these days? You see them just smashing it all the time, and then you go into something thinking, oh, okay, I need to perform this way. But realistically, you're not at that level yet. And if you go in with that mentality and you leave the session like, oh, I didn't go as hard as I thought I should, or I didn't go as hard as yesterday or last week, you're going to feel like it, and it's going to run into other areas of your life. But if you think of it as literally just that, how do I feel after that workout? How do I feel after actually getting something done that I actually didn't want to do? I was about to leave in the parking lot, but I actually went in and did it. I actually feel really good after that, like actually checking in with yourself. So I guess
that's the double-edged sword with social media, isn't it? I mean, you see the before and the afters, but you don't see any of the during. And I think that we all kind of get lost in that, and we get lost in the fantasized and almost fairy tale lifestyle of some of these guys and girls, and it makes you a little bit conscious of the way that you train, but life's not like that, and you're going to have those downtimes, and you're going to have that rough period, but get your ass in.
Yeah, we will have rough times, and not everybody wants to highlight that. Like, you need to start giving yourself some tough love. And I've come to the realization that everyone is starting to sweet talk too much and say, oh no, it's just okay. Oh no, it's just okay. Eat that donut. Oh no, it's okay. You just had that one meal off. But if you don't subjectively look at that situation, you're going to say, oh, it's okay, a little bit more often than you want, to achieve your goal. And if I said that a lot of times to that donut, I would probably be a pufferfish, because I know myself, and this is where it's really important for you to know yourself. I have the appetite of a 7-foot human giant. And if I gave into that donut, I realized that that's not going to satisfy me, and I'm probably going to want another and another. And this comes into like the whole workout thing as well. If you know yourself and you know that if you let that one workout slide, you're not keeping a promise to yourself, and you're giving yourself permission to not keep promises to yourself. And now I really want to go into the whole embracing patience thing and realizing you need to take the emotion out of your decisions, and you need to form habits that serve you if you want to keep your results for life. You can go into the whole embracing patience and realizing that your body is set a certain way because all these years got you to where you are now. Body fat set point, habit set point, because you have these thick cables. When you lose your weight, your body is going to want to go back to where it was. And it starts to kick up different gears to then put you back into that safety net, because your body knows comfort. So how else can we get people to really see that their body is primed to go back to where they were before, and they need to keep pushing against that resistance?
Well, I think that first people need to. I mean, you hear talk about set point and settling point quite often, and it's good to understand that set point and settling point are different things. And I don't think that most people realize that. There's a couple different models for how we maintain body weight, and our responses to losing weight and to gaining weight. Set point's one of them. Settling point is one of them. There are two newer ones that are actually a little bit better, but they're just called general intake model and dual intervention point model. Um, but just to keep things simple, if you look at set point is a genetic component. It's kind of like a thermostat. If you have a thermostat that's auto-regulating in your house and you say, I want it to be 70 degrees in this house. And if it goes above, the air conditioning kicks on. If it goes below, the heat kicks on. That's entirely genetic. Settling point is more of that theory is more environmental and social, which is kind of like if you grow up in a Western society and food is extremely plentiful, high density energy food is extremely plentiful. You know, there's a McDonald's down the street from everybody. Versus somebody that grows up, say, in like sub-Saharan Africa, and there's not that much food available. You're traveling greater distances. Oftentimes you're on a bike or walking to get to food. Those people are generally going to be lighter in body weight. Now, is that the genetic set point going to prevent them from changing? No, because the environment has shaped them into something different. But neither one of those models seems to work entirely correctly. It's almost like it's a combination of the two, which is why there's some of those other models out there. There's certainly a genetic component. I mean, we see that in metabolic adaptation that we always talk about when you lose weight. You know, most people think that, oh my God, my resting metabolic rate is going to go down severely if I diet, and that's why I can't, that's why I can't get any leaner. That's why I'm stalled. That's not really what happens. I mean, your resting metabolic rate drops a little bit, but it's usually anywhere from 50 to 150. I mean, low hundreds of calories. It's for people that lose 30 pounds, it's about 50 calories. So like half of a fun-size Snickers, and that's it. If half of a fun-size Snickers is why you can't lose weight, there's something wrong with your diet. You know, there's other things that happen when you start to go into metabolic adaptation. Hormones change a little bit. Activity levels decrease. You know, we talk about hormones, the ghrelin and cortisol alter. But the big thing that happens, and this is part of that genetic thermostat, the set point, is activity decreases. Your NEAT, all the movement that you do outside of the gym, and hunger ramps up. And if these two things are causing you to overeat and move less, then your body's going to fight change. Now, what really sucks about being a human is that this system seems to be asymmetrical. There is very little adaptation for most people in the other direction. So you can gain weight pretty easily. You can gain body fat pretty easily. You can overeat and gain body fat. And in a small percentage of the population, hunger shuts off rapidly and NEAT goes up like crazy. Those people that fidget a lot, you know, people that say that they can eat whatever they want and they stay rail thin, those people are basically having one large meal a day and they think that they're eating a ton because they're eating, 1,500 calories in one meal. But their daily intake is a lot lower than somebody else. So they feel like they're eating a lot, and you see them and you're out with them at dinner and they've eaten this huge meal and you're like, man, I wish I could be like them, but it's shut them off. So what we have to do is we understand that what's shutting us off most of the time from fat loss is movement and hunger. So what's really important to understand is look at the types of hunger that you have, and then you can better control that. Physical hunger and hedonic or emotional hunger are two different things. And there are different ways that you can identify this. Physical hunger is very quick onset. Anything in physical hunger sounds good. If you are in emotional hunger, you basically want cookies or ice cream or whatever it is that seems to be your issue. If you're in physical hunger, that is when you're so hungry, literally anything sounds good. It is a completely different experience. Physical hunger tends to be located in the stomach. That's where you get hunger pangs and growling. And you generally don't feel guilty after it. So what you want to look out for if you're a person that has these craving issues is look for the emotional cues of the cues for the emotional hunger or the hedonic hunger. It's sudden onset. Like I just said, you crave specific high reward foods. It's mindless eating. It's, you sit there and you snack on an entire tub of popcorn while you're watching a movie. It's located entirely in the mind. You start to think about textures and tastes, and how you'll feel after eating it. And a lot of times it leads to guilt. When you have that physical hunger, you just don't feel guilty afterwards. You're like, man, I was starving. I just played a soccer match. I'm going to go eat something and I'm going to feel good about it. But emotional hunger is different. And I think that when you start to realize these things and start to look at the way that these hungers affect you, you can start to essentially defend yourself against these changes. Defend yourself so you can push past that set point that your body might have. And in many instances, that set point is there because of influences from the environment, from a settling point. Maybe the fast food is taking up an inordinately large part of your diet. So when you are in that type of habit, the trick to breaking these types of I don't want to call it binge eating, because true binge eating has a psychological component to it. Usually what most people are dealing with when they say, oh, I had a binge, is they had cravings and they gave into it. And if you've been eating this way for 10, 20, 30 years, then this is a habit that you're going to have to unlearn. And it's more difficult to unlearn a habit than it is to learn a new one. But there are different ways to manage cravings, and you're just going to have to stay on top of it. Just like we talked about before, where you have to get used to fitness being a lifelong endeavor, you're going to have to realize that these cravings are going to be lifelong too. There's not a single person that doesn't have some sort of emotional craving at some point. So you come up with different ways to handle it. And each person handles these things differently. There are a bunch of different tactics that you can use. When you're trying to lose body fat and you're starting to get these hungers to ramp up. Because like we said, metabolic adaptation, this is one of the things, one of the two main ways to bring you back to weight, to hit that set point. You're going to get hunger to increase. And you might have some different tips than I have, but I'm going to give you a few just so people can look at some of these, figure out which ones might work for them, and then incorporate those into their daily lives, because not the same thing doesn't work for everybody. So we give you some options. You try some, you might find some work better than others. But the first thing that I like to tell my clients to do, first off, is wait 15 minutes. If you can wait 15 or 20 minutes, drink a glass of water, something like that, a lot of times that craving will pass. And if that happens because, that craving came on so quickly, well, like we talked about, emotional hunger, a lot of times it can pass just as quickly. Don't sit there and ruminate on it. Just give it 15 minutes, start doing something else. I find food diaries help a lot with this. You can keep a diary of, if you start to have this craving, write down in a diary, this is what I was feeling the, hours before leading up to it. You can evaluate that and identify triggers that have led to this unproductive behavior that you're calling a binge. And a lot of times you'll find that these habits of, I'm going to go and eat this type of ice cream are tied back to an emotional response. Maybe you got yelled at work. Maybe you have a project due for school. Maybe you're having issues with your boyfriend or girlfriend, and every time this happens, this is what you resort to for comfort. But if it's leading to guilt afterwards, this is not an extremely comfortable situation. So by having those food diaries, you can keep a mind and an eye on what's happening, what's leading up to it. And if you can identify those triggers, you can stop that whole sequence from happening. You can find food substitutions. If you are normally in that situation like I was talking about with emotional eating, and you reach for a cookie, maybe you reach for something like fruit. Maybe you reach for something like Greek yogurt with some like sugar-free Jell-O mixed in for flavoring. Maybe you reach for jerky or anything like that. Something that is slightly better. Remember, it's not all or nothing. It's often something. So something that's slightly better than what you were looking at before. Most importantly, though, what I find helps a lot is adjusting your food environment. And you probably talk about this with your own clients. If you have food that is normally a problem food for you within eyesight, you're going to eat it more often. Somebody's going to eat it. Either you're going to eat it, your significant other is going to eat it, somebody that's broken in your house is going to eat it. Literally, somebody's going to eat it. So remove those foods from sight. Either remove them from your house and make it so you have to drive somewhere to get it. you're creating a barrier to getting that food. Put it in the back of your freezer. If it's in the back of the freezer and it needs to thaw, there you go. Now you have to wait those 15 minutes I was talking about earlier anyways. So by not having those sensory cues right in front of your face, you can make that changing of your set point much easier because you get less kickback from it. Now, when you look at the research as far as the genetic set point goes, and can you physically change that? It appears that you can, but it may take a while. It may take upwards of years. And so you have to work on these habits in the meantime so you can sustain these changes that you've made to yourself, and understand sometimes it's going to be a struggle. So you start to put some of these tips or some of these strategies that we talked about into play and figure out which ones work for you. And just because we've said that, we want you to remove these foods from your house or from your line of sight, it doesn't mean that you can never have those foods again. If you've got things that you're particularly struggling with, don't have them in the house for a while. Cut yourself off for 4 or 6 weeks. Everybody can do anything for about 4 weeks. Say, I promise I'm not going to have donuts or whatever it is for 4 weeks. Knowing that you don't have to cut yourself off forever can be helpful. So once you've done it for a little while, and once you've had that practice, start to reintroduce things stepwise. Figure out which foods that you were struggling with. Figure out which one you were least struggling with. Start to pull that one back into your food rotation. If you start doing better with that one, then go up to the next one that was the next most difficult, and start to bring that one in, and do it that way. Now, you don't have to reintroduce foods, but for many people, that can be a way that they can feel better about giving themselves a specific timeline where they cut it out from their life. And it gives them that time to work on it, which is exactly what we want. What about you? What strategies do you use?
This is going to be the perfect leeway into the next topic as well. But everything you said there, it's more difficult to unlearn a habit than it is to learn new ones. And this is kind of what I put on my status and tagged you in ages ago, was it's more difficult to get people to unlearn bullshit about how to approach a diet than it is to actually teach them the proper way. And okay, people saying moderate. What if you can't moderate at the start? Like you mentioned, structure you need to. James Clear talks about choice architecture. There was a study where they put more bottles of water around the environment in the on top of the countertops, in the actual fridge themselves, and they reported an increase in people not only drinking more water, but drinking less soda pops or fizzy pops, wherever the study was done in the UK, and it's called fizzy pops. But if you actually structure your environment to mold that environment to become the person that you want to become, you make it that much easier. And what you did to lose the weight to start with isn't always, to a certain degree, what you do to keep it there. Because, okay, maybe to start with, you need to unlearn all of these habits. I had a client who literally could not have peanut butter in the house. And myself, I couldn't have cereal in the house once upon a time. Now I'm eating bowls and bowls of cereal, because what I needed to get to my goal once upon a time was I had a certain amount of carb intake that I was allowed. And you can eat anything you want, but should you? And yeah, I knew I could eat the cereal. I knew that I could fit it into my plan. But if I chose to eat that cereal, I would be starving on that weight loss macros that I was on. So I guess my way of thinking about it is, with the food diaries as well, is don't just write down when you're struggling with food and putting down the emotions around that, but also put down your wins. So then when you're struggling with food or struggling with a binge, you go back into, okay, what was it that I did last time? What habits am I missing out right now to get through this? And that whole real hunger thing again. When it comes to, this is something that I started to implement, make your food unitastic, as in monotastic. If you have too many flavors going on, everyone knows the dessert stomach. You can be really full after dinner, but still have room for dessert. Because if you change the texture of a food or change the flavoring of a food, all of a sudden you can actually eat more food. Like there isn't that bottleneck anymore. It's one of the ways that competitive eaters actually get through the comps. Like they will need to get through this whole thing of like burgers. They're eating all these burgers, they hit a point. Okay, let's add in some like different types of food. Like let's have some ice cream, let's have some chips. All of a sudden they're hungry again because they changed the taste bud stimulus in their mouth. Then they finish what they're eating. So mindfully aware of the way that you create your meals as well. Like don't make it bland, but don't have a flavorgasm in there. It's that buffet. Like
Well, I think
yeah,
I think what you're kind of getting at is something called the cafeteria diet, and or cafeteria effect. Um, and you know, when you look at the research on this, having less variety in your daily food intake tends to work a lot better for managing cravings. And the reason that is kind of going back to exactly what you're talking about. If you have a lot of variety going on, it triggers cravings pretty badly. So what you do is you figure out, you know, a certain palette of food, a certain variety of food that you want to have as your standard daily everyday foods. And now this is not to say that you can't go off plan every once in a while, but by having the standard palette of foods, you minimize the amount of cravings, you minimize how bad that can hit you, for sure. Absolutely.
yeah. So that's something to really keep in mind, and I loved the way that you made it down to that simple level of don't try to be a master chef with your food if you are trying to control the way that you manage your cravings.
Mhm.
And when you're going, like, you need to know, we're going to talk about actually maintain, like you need to eat and fuel the body you want, and actually the magical maintenance will come in a step. But when you're going through a weight loss phase and you're at the end of that and you come out of that, depending how lean you get, you are going to not only be more predisposed to put on more like muscle, but also fat. And your body is going to want to increase its fat storage because, like we said, the body fat set point. So you need to be able to maintain and fight that innate response to, wow, I'm hungry. And then I guess this is where structuring your environment really comes into consideration as well, because the whole intuitive eating thing, well, I could intuitively eat the whole freaking kitchen because the whole kitchen looks really good. Or if I structure my environment to actually suit my goals, okay, maybe I'm not really hungry for the Tim Tams or the Cheetos or the cake that's in the fridge because what's in my environment isn't hyper palatable foods. So being smart about the way that you structure your environment is what is going to lead to success in the long run. And now the importance of maintenance and actually eating for the body you want, because we don't want to live in a chronic deficit, do we? Like we shouldn't be.
What was that last part? You kind of cut out on me.
We shouldn't be forever dieting. Why is that? Like, what is the magic of maintenance?
So the thing with maintenance is if we've been dieting for a long time, what I was talking about earlier kicks in pretty hardcore. I mean, the biggest thing is that your NEAT's going to drop. You know, whenever you're not physically in the gym, all of the movement outside of the gym is going to plummet. The longer that you've been in a cut, the more severe this can be. And that becomes very problematic from a weight loss standpoint because the only thing that you can do to lower that is to move more, which your body doesn't really want to do, or lower your calorie intake more. And then the problem becomes, especially for smaller females, if you're lowering your calorie intake so severely, you could have some nutrient deficiencies or nutrient issues over time. So doing things like refeeds or going to maintenance for maintenance breaks, it's less of a change to hormones or anything like that than it is literally a mental and physical break to allow yourself to start moving again, to start feeling good again, to prevent potential muscle loss, because the longer that you're in a cut, the more that becomes a concern, especially if you're doing a severe cut. You know, if you're staying relatively close to maintenance, it's less of an issue, particularly if you're lifting weights. But the biggest issue that I find with people that tend to cut for extremely long periods of time is they have a couple goals. Almost everybody says, I want to lose fat and I want to gain muscle. Well, if you're in a really long-term cut, you're not really gaining any muscle. At best, you're holding as much as you possibly can. So if you want to be extremely successful, there are a lot of times where coming to maintenance or slightly above maintenance can be beneficial because it can give you some time to work on some of that lean muscle. So then when you try to cut down again, you can cut down on higher calorie levels. It can be easier for you. You can feel better while you're doing it. Don't get so blinded when you're trying to lose body fat that, okay, if I lose all this body fat, I'll feel great. Because maybe you at 140 pounds doesn't look as impressive as you would look at 140 pounds with 15 more pounds of muscle. And so what people will do is they'll look at their friends and they'll say, well, she's 140 pounds and she looks great. Well, you're not sitting with the same kind of underlying muscle. So what's going to end up happening is you're going to get down and you're going to look really doughy and you're going to have no energy because you've been dieting so hard. So take those periods where you can go to maintenance or you can go into a build and sprinkle them in throughout your cut. Spend some months doing these things because you're going to need it. And I think that just like you were talking about before, where people see the before and afters, all people get focused on is, if I lose this body fat, I'll be happy. But the body that they have in mind isn't the body that they're going to get just from losing body fat. So do you need to go to maintenance to lose body fat? No, but do you need to go to maintenance to get the body that you're shooting for? Do you need to go to above maintenance to get the body that you're shooting for? Oftentimes, yes. And on top of it, getting you to the body that you want, it makes it a lot easier during those cuts to do it that way. So the people that you find that are really successful in this are people that take time to enjoy being in a cut or a build for an extended period of time. They learn to stop thinking of, oh, I need to have these six-pack abs right now, and instead focus on, I want to get stronger. It's so funny how easy progressing becomes when you stop worrying about the physique aspect of it and start worrying about the performance aspect of it. Because you can see performance changes a lot quicker than you can see physique changes.
I know that I look so much better now that I'm not focusing on my physique versus when I did before. I don't know whether it's subjectively or objectively. I probably looked better before. Who the fuck knows? But the fact is, I am saying I look amazing compared to the way that I used to look. And the reason that I'm saying I am saying it is because I'm actually saying it. Like, if I looked better before, I definitely didn't feel it. I definitely didn't think I did. Because, okay, I may have had the body that everybody wants or whatever the hell it was, but I wasn't happy at that place. I wasn't proud of my body at that place because I was just focusing on the outcome and not the process. And I was so like tunnel vision focused, like you said, on just that physique goal, just that, oh, I'm going to keep doing this to get this body, this to do that to my muscle, this to do that to my muscle, but I'm not focusing on the process. But it was like 2000 and God knows, 2016, 2017, 2021 now. 2017 is when I stopped focusing on the bodybuilding aspect of it. And it's all been about hovering around maintenance. And I've hovered around maintenance. I went from like 50, 55, 56 kilos to 60, 61 kilos. I didn't do massive yo-yo diets of let's cut all the way to 50 kilos. Let's build all the way to freaking 70 kilos and look like a puffer fish. No, like you need to do things smart because the more that you hover around your maintenance, which isn't a static number, the easier you make it for yourself to sculpt that body. Because it's like, I want that person's body. You just focus on getting that person's body, but are you focusing on yourself in the process to get there? Are you focusing on the way that everything around you is getting sculpted? Because as soon as you get there, the idea that you had in mind, like you said, may not be that body. And if you've only focused on that aspect, you might just become a skinny, like a noodle. Like you probably just become a smaller version of yourself versus building you can't tone a muscle that you don't have. So you need to actually focus on, okay, what is it that I need to get there? And I hear this all the time. It's like, okay, I'm this body fat percentage and I want to get to this body fat percentage. And you actually think you're a certain body fat percentage when you're actually up here, not here. And then by the time you actually get to where you think you should be, you're not actually where you want to be because you just have this number in your head. and you don't know what's attached to that number. Like me at 55 kilos now, I look nothing like another person that looks like they're 55 kilos because I have a shitload of muscle mass compared to someone that is probably just starting out at 55 kilos. And whatever you weigh compared to, like, look at you. You're like a ball of just muscle, like one of the Transformers. Compare that to someone else, and they might be mainly predisposed with fat. Like, everyone looks different at different body fat percentages. How about height? How about what did they do before to get to where they are now? It is so much easier to maintain when you've been doing it for a long term. So stop thinking about where other people are at the moment. Back to what you were saying, because that was really important.
Well, I think that when people have a significant amount of fat to lose, you definitely want to start losing fat. I think that what they get focused on is that once they get down into, I mean, you can visually look at a person and be like, okay, they're about 16 to 20% body fat. I mean, there are a lot of different things online that you can look at just to see examples of what that looks like. Once you kind of get down in there, and this is where I think that newer people to lift and get caught up. They start to get down there and they're like, man, I'm just about to the point where like I'll be getting abs. If I just stick this out, if I just essentially starve myself more, I'll get abs. That's where you need to stop. That's where you're like, okay, I'm just shy of abs. Now it's time to add the muscle. You're now in the perfect position to add that muscle to make your life a lot easier, assuming you want to have some more muscle on top of your frame. That's where you start to say, you know, this is where I need to build. And you have to delay that gratification of having that six pack. Because if you're a natural lifter, you're not going to put on a good bit of muscle while holding a six pack. Most people won't. You might if you're brand new to lifting, you might if, you know, this is your first 2 years, if you're 18 or 20 years old, because you're just kind of coming into that period where you can gain. But if you have any experience, you know, if you've been lifting for 3 years, and particularly if you were lifting for a couple of years to get down in body fat to that high teens, low 20s percentage, you're not going to be gaining a ton of muscle while still holding abs. It's just not the way that it is. And I know that, you know, a lot of fit pros these days try to tell you that they can, but they're also the same fit pros that say that are the same ones that are on massive amounts of steroids. Yeah, you can hold abs and build if you're on a ton of steroids. If you're not on gear, then you need to come to the realization that maybe hovering around maintenance can be really beneficial for me for a year or more. You know, and a lot of people look at that and they're like, well, I can't have abs for a year. Why would I even do this? Well, this is what you're prepping yourself for so you can have abs later in life, you know, for longer periods. And it just kind of takes looking at it and realizing what your body can and can't do and going from there.
I just see the word body dysmorphia, so I just really wanted to touch on that one. That's the thing. Like, I suffered body dysmorphia for nearly my whole life. Like, my background, I had disordered eating, and it wasn't until I actually think that bodybuilding saved me. It didn't make things worse, even though the period after, my food habits were completely askew. But going through all of that stuff is what's made me who I am now. And it's because I took the focus out of having to focus on this number, having to focus on a physique aspect and doing what you said and focusing on what performance measures can I do? What more can I add to my life? How else can this add to my life? That it's actually brought me to a place where I am so, like, I'm confident in my body. Yeah, I still have days, but it's taken me all those years. And even when I was physique focused, I never had abs until I was dick skin lean. And as soon as I started coming out of that, goodbye abs. Like, I didn't maintain them on the other end. And now I have them pretty much 24/7. And I've been lifting for over 7 years. It takes time. Like, it took me about 3, 4, 5 years of actually going through the process and building muscle and fueling my body. You have to actually eat for the body that you want, because it needs to feel safe to release fat. It needs to feel safe to build muscle, because why would your body want muscle if it feels like it's about to run from a tiger or a bear? That's something I'm going to get you to talk about next. But you need to actually put in the work and realize it's going to take years of repeating the same habits of putting in the work. And like you said, you don't know which Fit Pro's on like gear or not, which Fit Pro's taking what, but the ones that you actually see put, like, it takes time. And if you're seeing someone maintain something at such an unhealthy looking level, that is not something to aspire to, because you don't know how they feel. And they might still have body dysmorphia. So you need to make sure that you're being realistic with yourself. You check in with yourself, because I may have looked amazing then. Like, looking back on some photos, I'm like, wow, I look really lean, but I'm not actually impressed with the way that I used to look. I think I look unhealthily lean, even though I was on stage and all shredded and stuff. Yeah, I post those photos still as a repost saying, look at what I achieved with hard work, determination, grit, and force. But I wouldn't want to go back there again, because I'm actually so happy with where I am now. I can run freaking half marathons now. I can lift freaking triple my body weight. Not really. I can't lift that anymore. But I can lift enough to be functionally strong in life. I have enough, and I feel amazing doing it, and I can maintain my body doing it. So body dysmorphia becomes less of an issue when you stop focusing so much on the external itself, but it's not an easy thing to do. So back to what I was saying about your body needs to feel safe before it can actually start to make changes.
You know, it kind of depends on what you mean by that. Because does your body really need to feel safe before it can lose body fat? No, not entirely. And the reason that is because, you know, the reason that your body kicks in those metabolic adaptation changes is because it feels unsafe, that it wants to bring you back up to maintain your body fat. So you kind of have to dip into that. Okay, my body's noticing that I'm trying to make some changes. If we're trying to you know, build muscle, you certainly need to be, if you want to build muscle optimally, you certainly need to be in a calorie surplus. And it is simply the way that your body responds to anabolism. I mean, it'll push mTOR up by having more carbs and more fuel. You'll be able to build muscle better that way. The body feeling safe, that kind of goes back to your body's activity levels being auto-regulated. And the safer that it feels, the more movement that you're going to have, the more that you will feel like you'll be able to put out energy. And this is why, if your concern is your body fighting you, doing a more moderated deficit is the way to go. By doing a more moderated deficit, it might extend that period that you're cutting weight, but your body's going to feel a lot better doing it. Your body's going to fight you less, and it's going to make your experience a lot easier. But depending on the person, losing weight fast or losing weight slow, when I talk to clients about that, it really depends on what their starting body composition is and how they are feeling mentally and emotionally. Because I can look at some of my clients, and if they're higher up in body fat percentages, they're not necessarily very educated on training. They're not used to getting into the gym, and they want to lose body fat. Sometimes I will actually take them down faster than I would other people. And the reason that I do that is the body fat itself is metabolically protective. They're not going to lose a whole lot of muscle mass because they're just starting to train. So if anything, they're going to gain some muscle mass. They've got a lot of body fat to lose, and losing a little bit of fat faster can be motivating for that person. Now, as far as making your body feel like it's okay to lose the body fat, the leaner that you get, the more that idea kind of comes into play. Because for lean people, there's certainly a difference of going from being obese to being in a normal body weight. When you go from being normal body weight to being lean, and especially stage lean, if you're going to take it that far, that's where your body really starts to fight you. And so people will say, oh, you know, in the beginning of my weight loss, I lost 30 pounds and it was really easy. And then those last 10 are are really hard. Yeah, you know, your body is starting to ramp up all those things that prevent you from losing weight. So sometimes taking things a little bit slower is the right way to go. You'll maintain that movement a little bit better. You'll be able to fight those cravings a little bit more. From the resting metabolic rate perspective, it really makes no difference. I mean, you're not going to destroy your resting metabolic rate any faster going quicker down than you will. I mean, that's mostly based on total amount lost, not the severity of the deficit. So, so by looking at your particular situation and how quickly you want to take things, you can adjust that for the person, for their body composition, and for how they're emotionally handling the weight loss itself.
That's actually we're gonna flip to the other side now when you were talking about like the people that do have a lot more body fat on them to start with. You need to realize you can actually put yourself into a bigger deficit. Like, you don't have to just cut it down a small bit. You can take it down quite a chunk and go for the fast fat loss, because you're not going to starve when you have that much, like, I hate the word starve, but you're not going to starve when you have that much stored energy on your body anyway. And like, it's not going to just eat into muscle mass that way. But you also need to keep in mind, just because you are in a calorie deficit, you should not be in a nutrient deficit. Like, you need to make sure you're getting in enough nutrients, enough protein. You can't just live off freaking ramen noodles all day. Like, you need to make sure you're dieting the smart way, but you can actually lose weight faster. But you need to also realize that your mental aspect of it all really matters, because if you're someone prone to binge eating, that's probably not a safe idea. How common is binge eating? Do you come across it a lot?
You know, it's difficult for me to say because of the job that I work in. You know, when people are fitness professionals, you're probably going to see more people with eating disorders than what is in the normal population. Because a lot of times people with eating disorders are like, you know, I've tried all these different things. I'm not getting where I want to be. And can you give me some help there? I mean, certainly you're going to see a lot more eating disorders, and you're going to see a lot more body dysmorphia. And let's be honest, any one of us that have picked up a weight and have been doing it for more than a year, we all have a little bit of body dysmorphia. Like, I'll never be as big as I want to be, and I'll never be as strong as I want to be. And that's just the way that it is. But, you know, you can use that productively, or it can be unproductive. As far as actual binge eating goes, you know, disordered eating is more common, in my experience. Binge eating tends to be something that you do run into, and I run into a few people every year that probably have a binge eating type of issue. But binge eating itself should probably be followed by a psychological professional. You know, somebody that can help with that psychological aspect of it. I think that we as coaches and we as nutritionists, we can be one piece of the puzzle to help address that. But I wouldn't address real binge eating without, you know, the support of a psychiatrist or psychologist, because there's just a lot going on there.
Yeah, it really does stem from like past traumas, past things like that as well. So this is why being really aware of where your starting base is, and are you actually prepared to do a rapid fat loss, or do you really need to just get yourself to a starting place first, realize where you're at, and then move? But also, you need to be honest with your coach in that if you're not adhering to a certain protocol that they prescribed you, they're not going to know that unless you tell them. I guess we can pretty much summarize with the takeaways of what you think most people should realize about not only maintenance, but the power of your environment, the power of, well, the struggle with unlearning habits and learning new habits, and why it's important to sometimes give yourself enough fuel to get the body that you want. And it's not always about taking that fuel away.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about, because you had mentioned that you wanted to talk about how to wrap all of this up and put it into a package that could be easily digestible. And I think that's a great idea. I think that it's difficult to give, X points that are going to be relevant to each person. So what I would do, and this works not only in fitness and nutrition, but in life in general, is I would focus on what type of things can help a person succeed. What can keep you committed to something, not motivated, but committed, because they're different things. Motivated is like, yeah, I'm really excited to go out and do this. When you're committed, you do it whether you're excited to go out and do it or not. And you will be motivated a lot of the time, but you're going to be committed most of the time. So just like a lot of other fitness professionals talk about, I think the biggest thing that you can do is understand your why, not the surface reason, but why what you're doing really supports who you are and supports your goals. A lot of people will say, I want to lose body fat. Well, why do you want to lose body fat? Nobody just wants to lose body fat. Like, why? Is it because you want to be healthier? Is it because I'm going to feel more confident? Is it because I want to, feel better when I go to the beach? There's an underlying reason. There's something that's missing in your life that you want to change. So understand that. Don't tell yourself, I just want to lose weight, or I just want to get bigger. Why do you want to get bigger? Do you want respect from others? Do you think that it'll make you feel better about yourself? Are you tired of not being able to move your own furniture? There can be a lot of different reasons, but delve into that and figure out why. Then build your habits and your systems. We talked about how motivation is fleeting. We talked about how you have to you've got a lot of things to unlearn potentially. I mean, most people do. So don't feel frustrated that you've got a lot of things to unlearn, but build habits and systems that you can put into place. And we talked about different ways to change habits with cravings. We talked about different systems that you could use to change cravings, changing your food environment, changing, writing a food diary, setting up a training protocol that you want to do, and reinforcing that training protocol by constantly going, even if you know that you're not going to have a good day. Build those habits and systems, because that's what's going to keep you going when that motivation goes down. Keep a running log of your progress. And like you were talking about earlier, a lot of people will focus on the scale. They won't focus on things that are more important as far as progress goes. Are you feeling healthier? Are you feeling stronger? Can you do something that you couldn't do before? Are your pants fitting better? These two are my favorite if you've got physique goals. Are your pants fitting better, or are your shirts fitting better? Guys can check out their chest and their arms and shirts. Everybody can check out how their waist fits in pants. And how do you look in the mirror? I don't care what the scale says. Nobody really cares what the scale says. How do you look in the mirror? How are you look in your underwear? How do you look in a bathing suit? Do you feel better about yourself? What types of things can you look at that are not the scale to be able to monitor frequently to check your progress? Because anytime you see an improvement in any of those, and it could be measurements around your waist, anytime you see improvement in any of those, you can take a note and say, look, I succeeded in this. I know that not every week or every 2 weeks is going to be a change in the scale, but these are all improving as well, which means things are getting better. Keep going. The scale will change. Maybe it won't if you're building muscle, but if everything else is moving along, you're okay. You're on the right track. Realize too, you're going to fail. Everyone listening to this is going to fail. Everybody fails. But there's a difference between temporary failure and quitting. Temporary failure is okay. Everybody's going to do it. Everybody's going to make mistakes. The important thing is reevaluating your situation. What can you learn from it? Can you improve things? Okay, I went on an office Christmas party and I had too many drinks. Okay, well, next time, make a plan beforehand. I'm only going to have 2 drinks tonight. Good, you've made the plan before you go. Things are going to be better this next time. Just realize that a temporary failure doesn't mean you have failed. It just means it's a time to learn from it. As long as you don't quit, you haven't failed. Above all, be committed and be consistent. I think people will look at their journey and they'll say, hey, I did really well during the week. I was great. And then I celebrate on the weekends. And they're like, I don't understand why I'm not changing. Well, is that consistency high enough to get you where you want to be? And if it's not, then you've got 2 choices. You can either alter that part of your lifestyle that is preventing you from getting where you want to be, or you alter those end goals that you have. And neither is wrong. If you originally wanted to have really ripped abs, but you also like to party, and now instead of having ripped abs, you've gotten down, 25 pounds in body fat. You're feeling better. You're looking a lot better. You don't quite have ripped abs, but you're making it fit in your lifestyle. Maybe that's what you learned on this journey, and that's okay too. So I think that this whole all or nothing thing can kind of go multiple ways. It can go, towards your expectations. It can go towards your goals. It can go towards how you address training and nutrition. And life's just not all or nothing anyways. It's generally something.
I mean, that was a setback in itself. If you were all or nothing then, imagine where you would be now if you weren't okay with what was manageable.
Yeah, and I found that actually it came out to be a very good thing for a lot of clients, because they were able to experience that giving, doing what they could do situation. They were forced to do it. So instead of me just saying it, it's like, okay, well, let's brainstorm and work ways around this. And I think that benefited them greatly. So I think that looking at these things and appreciating your incremental progress for what it is the way to do this. Nobody is a before and after. Everybody has all those steps in between that nobody sees, and just be conscious of it and see it through.
I love that. No one is a before and after. And if you only focus on trying to get the after, your after is going to be a lot more worse. And
you're not going to get there. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get burned out in the process. And like I said, the people that end up doing this well are the people that end up finding an enjoyment in some part of the process. It doesn't have to be the training itself, but maybe you really enjoy the way that it makes you feel. Maybe you enjoy the way it makes you perform. Maybe you enjoy the way that it makes you look. Maybe you just enjoy going to the gym because you've made friends there with people that support you. There's a lot of times where the people at the gym who have shared interests tend to get you better than a lot of people outside of the gym. And maybe that's what it is for you. Maybe it's a social experience. Either way, it's benefiting you, and it's getting you where you want to be.
Yeah, and it's going to take time to unlearn the old focus you used to have. Like, it's not about an end goal anymore. It's about becoming, because you're never going to get there, and that's okay, because that's life. We're human beings. We'll get to the end goal that we thought we were going to be at, and we'll not be happy, and we want to improve in other ways. Like, that's the beauty of life. If you try to stay complacent or stay stagnant with what was once perceived as your end goal, that's boring. Like, who wants to just stay still? True.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we wrapped it up pretty damn well. Like, these were really good takeaways. I have nothing else to add to that, except don't be frustrated at unlearning what you once believed, because it's inevitable. Like, there is shit that I used to believe that I had to unlearn to get to where I am now, and I'm sure you're exactly the same. Everybody has to go through that unlearning process as we grow and we become better, because failures grow us. We learn from failures. Failures are feedback. You need to go through the failures in order to succeed, because if you see something challenging, you won't know whether you're going to fail or you succeed until you actually try it. Fail, try again. Fail. Don't try again the same way, but try again a different way. And because, like, yeah, maybe you will try again the same way to start with before you realize, hey, that's kind of a stupid decision of mine. I need to try again, but just not the same way, so I don't keep failing. You'll get to the evolution of you. Like, it's not the end goal of you, it's the evolution of you. So
absolutely,
I think that pretty much sums it. I'm gonna put his awesome meme group down below as well, and you can easily see that this is his thing. I'll put his thing down below as well. And yeah, thank you for coming on. That was such an awesome chat.
Thanks for having me, Ruby. It was a pleasure.
Yeah,
thanks.
Thank you.